Not too huge of an upgrade for the lab since I taught this class last semester. I wanted to focus a lab on teaching you how to use PowerShell and to also have access management commands that you're gonna use so that way you would understand. We did do a lab for lab 2 where we created user accounts and group on the local machine. So there's some of that review at the beginning. So when you see that, it should be familiar to you, but I also expanded onto the permission. Okay. So for part A, that simply is loading a virtual machine. You might have different type of drives. So in my case, I have the SP. You would just find a folder. You can copy this folder, right click, choose copy, and then go paste it onto your desktop. And then once that's done, you would have a folder on your desktop like this. You can just open it and double click the blue, or you can go in here, click add, point to your desktop folder, and find your VBox file and open it. Okay, so I already have it loaded on my playlist here. I'm just gonna go ahead or the library of VirtualBox machine. So it's gonna go. It's gonna take a few minutes to run. So once we have the VirtualBox, if your password doesn't work normally like this, you can add the exclamation point after CIS27. Sorry if I had mistyped or forgot to include the exclamation point. So once you logged in, you're gonna first use command prompt. Okay. And we want to run command prompt as administrator because we have privileged as administrator on our VM. So once this loads, you're gonna open up CMD or command prompt and then choose run as administrator. Can you run the command prompt as a regular user? For some command, but certain type of command requires higher privilege, just like how we use root in Linux, right? We would use administrator in Windows for the higher privilege task. And for our user account, we simply use net user and we can do a dash add and we would have username and we can put in the password for that account. By default, that account would require a reset of the password then when they first log in, but they need the current temporary password to reset. So you would, then you can do a local user group. Now on the local group, this is a built-in group that is equipped with the OS for administrators. Okay, so let me see my Windows. And if you can't log in, you can click input, keyboard, insert Control-Alt-Delete. Again, when you click this and it doesn't let you log in, you can always choose input, keyboard, insert Control-Alt-Delete, and it will bring up this screen. But most of the time when you click it, it should let you access it. So the newer machine I made, I didn't have the exclamation point, so I just gotta make sure. Yeah, that was a little bit inconsistent on my part. Sorry. Okay, so once you log in, this is your desktop. Let me pull this down so we can follow the steps. So on the next part here, I just need to open up my command prompt. And we know that our search bar on the bottom, we can type in CMD. I need to get it out of lower cap locks here. So sorry, I didn't have it run as administrator. Let me try that again. CMD. And then on the right side, click administrator, or you can also right click this and run as administrator. So that way we would have higher privilege. And then I'm gonna change the font a little bit so we can see. Okay, so here is my command prompt. And I chose run as administrator. So if you have it as a regular user, you can close it and reopen it. We're gonna do a net user space dash add. We've done this before, CIS27 user, and then the password. And with password policy, this might not even meet the standards. So you might have to change it to a 0, add more symbols, etc. to make it long enough for 12 characters. But this is a generic temporary password that we can create. And then once that's done, it's going to tell you command is successful. Then we're going to do a net local group. Sorry. And administrator. This is the built-in group that comes with the OS. If you don't have the group, if you want to do a custom group, you can create a group like what we've done before. So we're going to do CIS27 user. Make sure that the way that you create the account, make sure that it matches. Otherwise, it's going to throw an error. The computer is only going to do what you instruct it to do. So we made a user account. So that's part of the identification of the user, and we authenticate, right? We set up the authentication for the user with the password. And now we add that user to a group. So now this user has group membership. And just like before, we're going to check our user account on our local system using net users command. And it shows me that I have, right? This is the user I created just now. This is the user I logged in as. And there's some default user account that came with the OS. Yep. Say it again. Oh, no. Yeah. So this type, CIS27, all caps with exclamation point. Yes, that's the right one. Yeah, just follow the. So you're gonna use a generic password. Okay. Yeah, so it says that it doesn't exist. So the S, and yeah, you gotta type, the syntax has to match what the instruction shows. So if it's administrators with an S, make sure that it has an S like this. And then, you know, if you create the user has upper lowercase, you have to make sure that it is case sensitive. So make sure that you follow exact match. Were you able to log in? Okay. All right. Other questions? We're good? We've seen this before. So this is just review at the beginning, right? So at this point, we created the account. We added to a default built-in group. Now this user has administrator's privilege, just like us. And then we ask for the system to display all the local users. So you can screenshot this and you can count. So I have administrator, that's default, it's hidden. I have the student 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guest is disabled. So these two are disabled by default. And some of the other ones are system accounts. So you don't see those. Normally, when you log in, you only see the ones that we create. So we would count up the number of accounts that's listed. Then we are going to look at specific user account by doing net user. Sorry. 2 words, and then our account that we created, CIS27 user. So make sure that the S is important, right? If it doesn't understand the command, check how you type or your syntax. So this is like when you go into computer management console before in lab 2 and you double click the account and you look at the property of the account. So it tells you the account information, right? The password information or the settings for the password. So basically you can view the account in command prompt. So look at when the password was last set. It should be, right, based on our time. We just created it, so it was a few minutes ago on my part. Okay. So you can look at the account history information, like the password when it was created. And then for the local group membership, we would find the local group membership is down here. We added this user to the administrator when we created that account. So confirm. By default, all users belong to the users group out of the box. When you create a user and not put it in a group, it belongs to the users group, right? Administrators are also in the users group. Any user exists in the system will belong to the users group. Now, the global group membership is none because we had never given it any kind of global group membership. It is only, this account only exists on this system. No, not in other network system, not in the world. So just when you see global, that will be the worldly system. So anything beyond our system, no, right? We haven't given that. We didn't add it to the domain or anything yet or elevated it. Okay, now we're going to do net local to look at our group. We've done this before, I know. But with practice, I hope you remember. So you would see some built-in groups, right? Most of them are built-in groups and they have asterisk or the star in front of the names. Those come with the Microsoft OS. These groups have specific privilege assigned to them already out of the box. So if you just wanted for them to have the privilege that's assigned to the group, you throw them in there, right? So these are called built-in, right, groups for the Microsoft OS. Like if I want Hyper-V administrator, I just create the user account and add it to that group, right?
Stacy,
Yes.
I'm having trouble. I downloaded this.
Onto your desktop.
You see it?
Yeah, where's the file? Right there? Okay, good. And then open up, where's your VirtualBox app? On your taskbar, the square. No, next one. And then just browse to your desktop, open up the folder. Yeah, very good. Try again. Okay, again, open up its subfolder. Okay, now put the blue square. You can open. There you go, and hit start.
Now, why was it not, I had to do it several times?
Well, because when you click, the way that you click, it sees it as separate clicks, so it didn't register your selection. That's all it is. Yeah, click open. And then start. And then.
Do I do?
Oh, yeah, because in the fire lab, you might have set it to 12 characters, so just. Add a few more, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to make it longer. Okay. And complex. Yeah, just make sure, try exclamation point. CIS. Okay. $27. All right,
I
so,
click the start button.
yes,
It's,
it's loading, yeah, do not touch anything until it loads your desktop or your login screen, and then when you log in, make sure you add the exclamation point to that. Okay. All right, so we saw the administrators and the other groups. Okay, if you want to look at specific group, you would just do the net local group. And then it's the name of that group. So administrators with an S. And it would tell you who are the members in that group, right? So basically we're looking at the property of that group. So here are the members by default, administrator, and then we have the account that you guys are logged in under, and then the user account that we created, and it executed that successfully. So now we're done with the command prompt part, so we can X that out. And then we would go to the C drive. Okay, so to access C drive, you can just open up File Explorer right here. Open that up. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta make sure. Make sure that you're in the virtual machine, not the host machine. So click the File Explorer because they look the same, right? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into, make sure that you in the VM to the, you can go to this PC and then to the C drive, okay? This PC and then the C drive. And inside the C drive, you can right click and make a choose new folder. And when we can name it CIS27. So think of it like just a folder where we're gonna put in some files. We wanna control the permission of this folder, okay? And then inside it, so after you make the CIS27 folder, double click it to open it up, right click inside it, new folder, and then we're gonna call this test. Now, once you're on the inside, you can click on the top to go back to the outside folder or click back to C. So go back to where you can access the outside folder, right click, go to properties. And since we're using NT file system or NTFS, you're able to access this tab. So again, after I make the CIS27 folder, I open it, I create another folder called test. Then I move back 2 level back to C drive so I can right click the CIS27 folder, go to its property and look at security tab. Okay, this is where you can do folder and file permission for NT file system. In all the new Windows, this is where you access it. Right click the folder, go to properties and security tab. Okay. So at this point, it will tell you which group. So I have authenticated users, administrators, and users. Remember that our user account is in both groups, users and administrator. And it tells you the permission right here. So if I click on the users group, what are the permissions for the users group? Well, they have this permission, read and execute. That means that I can view the file. So if it's an executable, the .exe for Windows, I can run it, right? Because if I have this group membership, I can list folder content. I can see folder within folder and files within the folders. I can view the file or the folder, right? In order to do anything else, you have to see, right, the object and what's in the object. Okay, so list the permission that has the check marks, that's allowed. So take a screenshot and then type out the permission. Read and execute, list the folder, list folder contents and read. Okay. Now, sorry, oh yeah, I do have so now what if we want to modify this? What if we want to give it more or take away permission. As an administrator, remember, you can only do this as an administrator. Just like in Linux, you can only be a root user or a super user to do that. So you're gonna go ahead and click edit right here. And then you're just gonna add. So let's say that I don't want to add the whole group because the group's already there. I want to add a single account. But remember that the user is gonna get the inheritance from its container. So it doesn't really matter if I add the user that already belongs to that group, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and click add. And when you type in CIS27 user, if it doesn't check out because the typing is different here, it's not gonna give you an underline. Okay, so just if the typing, the name matches, it's gonna highlight the location of the system that it found the account, and then we're gonna click OK. So that's how you're able to add the user or the group, is to click edit and then add and then type in the name, the ID of the user or the group, and check it. So now by default, remember that out of the box, if we add the account, because it also is part of users and administrator, but Microsoft follows the least privilege. So let's think of it this way, right? You have an account that belongs to two groups. One group that have a lot of privilege and another group that doesn't have privilege. Very much, minimal privilege. So it's gonna take the least privilege group setting. See, I have this account that belongs to the users and administrator group that I created earlier. It's gonna have the less privilege, which is the user's privilege versus the administrator, because it's a least privilege, right? Rule. Okay. So once I added, check the name, I click OK, or you can do apply and OK. And then it should show, right, the account that I added and the appropriate permissions. And at the point, I can still edit this, right? Let's say that I change my mind and I want to give them modify, which is what it tells me to do here. So you can change this, click on the account, and make sure you check allow modify. But whenever that you select deny, it's always going to override anything that you allow. So in a case where I check both the deny, it's going to take priority or precedence. Any questions? So when you audit permission, you have to look at all of these. Yes, we do have systems that help us look at them, but you can also audit the changes of permissions, the logs. So as I modified this for this folder, it generates an event on my system saying that so-and-so, right, CIS27 student account was modifying this object at this time. So you have to go in and look at those things because, you know, attacker could come in and they would modify your objects like that. So that way they can have access, give themselves access to your objects. Okay, so this is an access control list for the folder or for your object, right? What's allowed and what's denied, your ACL for your file and folder. Okay, so once we change that to modify for allow, and then we click OK. So I'm here, I had modify. So modify means what? So write means save. Modifies mean change. Also, it's property I could change. Sometimes attributes. Okay, very good. Make sure we know the difference. Okay. So are the permissions the same as they were set? So now we're going to check the inheritance of the parent folder compared to the inside folder. Okay. So first, we're gonna take a look at the property of the folder. So this is what you change on the outside, right? The CIS27 property. We just added the user account and it's required permission based on the instruction. Now we are going to close the property. We're going to go inside the test folder and we're going to check its property. And look at the security tab. Well, guess what? It carries, right? Because it's nested inside the CIS. So I don't have to do it 2 times. I just have to do it on the outside folder and automatically by default, it inherits the parent's folder, right? Almost all OS does this, right? This is just a common practice. So that way, if you have a bunch of small little folders inside the parent folder, you just have to change the parent folder and it would carry the inheritance. Now you can disconnect the inheritance and make it an orphan where there is a setting in the advanced feature. Let's see. Click on advanced here, and then you can disable the inheritance. So how did I get there? I just click advanced button instead of edit. And you need to do this on the parent folder so it disconnect with the child inside and you can disable the inheritance. And that's how you can disassociate the permissions from the outside being carried within. But by default, it should inherit. Understand? So we don't do, if you have 100 folder on the inside, you just do it on the outside and it carries across all the 100 folder. It streamlined the process and centralized permission management for you. Question? Yep.
On this particular machine, you cannot copy or paste.
No, you have to type. And this industry, you cannot copy and paste forever. You have to type.
Yes.
Yes. I know it saves time, but practice. We have to type. Okay, so we already looked at the security tab and we should be able to answer, right? I said the inheritance permissions are carried into the subfolder of the files within the parent folder of the CIS27. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that is the property sheets of the folder. Whatever that you can click and point, you can do it in command line. So now we are going to call on PowerShell. So open up in your virtual machine, you're going to search for PowerShell. Oh, I'm typing up. Sometime, I don't remember. Okay. So it looks kind of like command prompt, and I forgot to run as administrator. Make sure that when you search for PowerShell, right, on the right side, or you can right click, run as administrator, and it gives you a different path. So Windows firewall is gonna say, hey, do you want to do this? It's gonna access your device this way. Yes, allow. Okay, so give it a second. It's gonna load your path. And let me change my font for pop-up. Okay, so once in PowerShell, what we're gonna do is we are going to, right? And very important here, I know it's tricky and it's long, type things like it's intended to be typed. If you have upper lowercase and you miss that, it's gonna throw a bunch of red errors. So just look at your typo. It's usually the case, right? We know that from Linux already. So we are going to type in new. I did enable, let me try. I created some of these newer machine. Yeah, it didn't register. So new item. And there are highlights to kind of show, very similar to Linux. And we are going to share this. Okay, so we can double check new item path on the C drive under the share call assets item directory. So what we're doing here is there is a directory in C for share, and we can use this to locally share, and share have less permissions than NTFS. And I'll show you where you can see that. So let's say that we go back to our folder that we made in C drive, right? There is sharing permissions under the sharing tab. This has been around for a long time. So if you choose share, you can select the group or the user you want to share it to, and it lets you control less permission, only 3. Okay. You can do advanced sharing, right? Like if I want to share this folder, I can add the account and then I can have so many users sharing it. But if you click permissions, there are only 3. Full control, change, or read. Very similar to what you see with Linux. This is like a 7, right? This is like a modify that we saw in NTFS, and this is a read. Sometimes you also have share permission conflicting with NTFS permission. So we need to check those. So in that, by default, the OS, right, has the share for the C. So basically, we're controlling the assets folder in here. Okay, so in the path. All right. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create a file name client list. Right, this is like doing echo in Linux before, and then we're going to append that file to the share folder. And we're going to name it client list.txt. So the way that you do this in PowerShell, and it is a lot more tedious because every time that you register this, you execute a function, right? To set up a path and then to be able to set up a file and then append the value or the text string into that file. So let me pull back my PowerShell. So you would then enter new dash item, right? Space path and quotation mark C. And we're gonna do a share, close your quotation mark, space dash name, open quotation mark client underscore list dot txt, item type. And Microsoft has a whole documentation on how to use PowerShell, and you can also look at their example. Sorry, I gotta pull this so I can see. We're gonna do a dash value and we're gonna append the string. This is a client list. So it is a little bit more tedious if you're looking at PowerShell, but it is clear on what we're doing, right? We're creating a file, append the string into that file, and then put that file in a location. And if everything is typed properly, it would show you, right, the timestamp of when it created that file, the length of the file, and then this is the attribute mode. It's not the permission. This is used for backup purposes. Some of that should be covered in OS classes. And then you can always use the up arrow key similar to Linux or CMD or command prompt to repeat the last, and you can also modify it. So if I already have all of that, I can use the up arrow key and use this to change this to project or client project. Make a second file. right? And then the text will be, this is, sorry.
Miss Casey, how do I create a new file on this? Desktop? I open C.
The folder you mean? Yeah, so open, double click C inside it, and then right click anywhere inside the C. So,
And now this is it.
no, but you're in the host folder. You need to be in the virtual machine. Where's your virtual machine? Yeah. Okay, yeah, you can close command prompt now. So click the blue X so you can see your desktop more.
Sure.
Yeah. And the other one too. You don't want that gray bar. Okay, now close your command prompt because you're done with that part, right? Yeah, how do we close an application?
Like that.
Yes, very good. All right, open up your folder, the file explorer. Yeah. And then go to this PC. This PC. No, and then, click on this PC on the left. Double click that. Or expand it. Okay, now double click C. Anywhere, right where you are. No, not on the folder, where you are. On the right click, and then choose new folder. And then, yep. Okay, yes. So just continue with the step. Open up that folder and make another folder. Same procedure. Okay. So you created 2 files at this point in step 32. And you notice here that I put that whenever that you have a shared folder path, Microsoft, the OS is going to put a $sign in the front. Whenever you see the $sign, it's going to indicate that is a shared object, whether it's a drive or it is a folder on the drive, right? With that, we need to look at how it is shared and who is it shared to and how they access it. So it creates a variable. So this is a way that we can define a variable in PowerShell to make that folder on the C drive a shared directory. Basically, right-click the folder, choose sharing, and allowing that folder to be shared. So you can execute it in one command instead of, open up the folder and go to its property and choose sharing, right? So basically just set up a variable. So you would do $dir and then equal, sorry, I have to set up the path. So whenever it's a path, it's usually a quotation mark. Okay. And if it takes, it should just pop up the next line. That means it's successful. And then what you can do is you can go to this PC, go to File Explorer, look at the C and the share folder. So now coming back here, sorry, I got cut off a little bit there. Go to C drive. And if you right click and go to its property, right? Let me see. I'll open it, sorry. I'm trying to track my step. Okay, so coming back here, go to this PC, go to C drive, go to share, right? So these are the ones that we created using that, and then this is the folder. So how many objects is going to be shared? It's going to be these 3. I'm wondering. So how many files do you see? Yeah, it's not done being shared yet. I think it's just creating a variable. You got to use that, pass that variable in a parameter. Okay, so that you should see how many objects. Well, we saw that in here, 2 files and a folder, so 3. And then we'll look at the C drive, right click the folder, go to Properties Security tab. And then what we want to do is we want to take a screenshot again. We're going to access administrator group. So in here, sorry, back here, right click, go to share properties. And then click on security tab. Then after you screenshot, you're going to go to administrator, and by default, it should have full control.
Where, Stacy, on this, new folder, where does it have the users group?
If you right click the folder and go to properties, and then click on security tab, you should see the users and groups listed at the top with little heads, 2 heads for the groups and 1 head for the user.
So then right click that?
Well, if you double click each one, it'll tell you the permission for each one, or click each one. You don't have to double click. Okay, so when you open up the administrator group, we saw that they do have full control, right? Full allow. So whenever you select full control, it includes everything that's listed below. And so you can list the permission. Now, when we create the object for the administrator group, because it is a built-in group, it should have whatever the built-in permissions that's granted to that group. So now, since we already set up the variable from before as $dir, we are going to pass it with the get ACL function. So we're gonna do get ACL space dash path, and yeah. So that means, remember that we set up the variable. You saw that when I looked at the properties earlier, it is not shared, right? But now, when I had already created the variable for the path, what I'm gonna do is it tells me that the owner for this particular directory or folder is the administrator group, and they are allowed full control. It's exactly like how we looked at the property sheet and see full control from the property sheet. So when you set up the variable of what that folder, where that folder is, you can do get ACL to obtain the permissions from that folder using that function. So this is equivalent as, right? I go here, I go here, I go here, I go here, and I looked here, right? Same thing, but we can do it in one line. After we set up the variable, we can do a get ACL. So get ACL will give you the permissions that is granted for that folder or that directory at that location. Okay, which I see here that it tells me administrator has full control. Okay. Any question?
Yes.
Edit? Follow the step. Nice. No, edit and then what? You're not reading everything.
Yeah, but
Yes, let's follow the steps, it's all there. And then we've done it before, Gabriel, in other classes, so. Any questions? Hmm? So your format, so basically it's just a way to display. Right? We can organize it, so the second time we did it, you basically have it put in the way that it's table size, right, auto size. Whereas when you open it before, it might look the same because that might be a default form. Right? But so what this instruction really tells you is there are ways that you can display all your information at once. So this would be a lot. Right, exactly. Sometimes it will add an extra column or two to really show you some additional details to that one. Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah, because when you execute a certain command, it might omit some information in the right column or some details that, it would only include what is, how they work with functions. So if you have it formatted a certain way, it would put it into a certain format to display so we can have all that. Yeah. As lowercase final a, not spelled. Basically, we made it. So basically, we made it over that one. Which is good. Okay, you find it, April?
Yes, I think so.
Don't open the host unless you type up your answer. Oh, you're snipping, okay, good. I was worried that you're taking it. We're good? So stay. Stay.
Good job. Yeah, this case, this is the one I opened. So, right here. On this.
Yeah, so open up the CIS27 folder. Yeah, just follow the steps. It's all there. Just read the step and follow it in increments. You're on the right track. So if you ask me if you're in the wrong path, no, you're on the right track.
It just comes up with edit address.
You have to click. No, open up your CIS27 folder that you just made in C drive. Okay, so go back one step, click back. Put the arrow back. Put the arrow back. The arrow back. For the arrow back. All right, so now you see your CIS27 folder. So the problem is you're not naming the folder properly like the instruction had asked you to, so that's why it's gonna create a problem later on. So right click it, choose rename. And type in CIS27 folder. Type in CIS27. Out of it. But you're not naming it like how it told you here, so do it again.
Go back into this.
Name it exactly like how it's the instruction. It's important that we follow instructions in this field, so we gotta make sure we follow the instructions, right? CIS27. Just then, yeah, some of the later steps is gonna rely on the name parts. Yeah, okay, now let's check your test folder. Okay, click out of it. Click out of it, click not on it, yeah. Okay, open it up. Open up the CIS27.
Oh, this one?
Open up the CIS27 folder. Okay, where's your test folder? So make it again, right, click somewhere in the middle. What do we do next? How do I make a new folder earlier? Good. What else?
Folder?
Yeah. Give it a name, test with a capital T. Okay, so. No, you have to take out the new folder, just give it test only. You don't want new folder test, just test. Okay, good. Click out of it. Very good. Now click the arrow back one step so you can see the good. Okay, and then right click CIS27 properties. The security tab on this. The active user. Okay, yes you did. Very good. All right. So now the question asks you, so it tells you to click on this user account. Right? Look at what permission that you have here, which is full control. Right? And then you can close it. Remember that, right? Cancel. And then open it up and look at the subfolder. Right click, properties, security tab, and look at the user. Look at CIS27 user. Is it the same?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. And then next step. Other questions? Okay, so as you go, and I'll let you do your thing instead of just following. But what you will do is here it tells you that you can access the property of each of the folder. So like we talked about, accessing the properties and then going in and viewing the property. So I'll do some of these so you can see the example. So we can do a get ACL, and spacing does matter in this because it puts the proper parameter dir, and we can pipe select object space expand with a capital E property access. So this will give you more the details, right? Where it gives you, as you can see, we're expanded property. So it tells me all the permission information for the access for each group. Like authenticated user, what this is allowed, right? Authenticated user, what is allowed? Read and execute, modify file system rights. Now compare that to the previous, you would have a summarized property information. So this is a way that we can use this for audit. And I'm going to do the 40 because this question came up earlier. How is it different? So remember that it is in a format where it's detail, right? And if I put this into a parentheses, get ACL, and set up path, and dir, close parentheses, dot access. And we're going to pipe it, and we're going to do a format dash table. And we're going to do auto size. Sometimes you might not see the exact difference, but this teaches you on how to organize your information from your file or object properties to a certain display. So you notice that on this, and if I expand this and I expand everything, right, it shows inheritance information. We didn't see this on the property sheet earlier. We have to click advanced. So it does include some advanced information about the access control of that particular object. It shows, of course, different groups that we had that object contained and its appropriate permissions. Okay. So there are system specific type of group, but these are all the what you see in the built-in groups or authority groups. Okay. So this teaches you on how you can take this and then organize it in a table format to display. So this does give us a little bit more summarized version than the detailed one, but it is helpful in if you need to find additional information or not, right? Now, ACEs are entries. So think of the property sheet. Each item on that list is an entry. So what we can do is we can use this just like what we had before, pipe it. We would look at the inheritance for the object that is true, that carries the parent, right, properties, and we would display that onto the format. So you're going to get the same information. However, display might be slightly different in that it would show you right? This one is gonna look at the query where we are specific to the object, even though all our objects are inherited true here. So we would filter only the inheritance is true. If all the objects are true, then it display all the objects, right? So you might not see specific difference, but if I have objects that are not true, it's gonna block those out. It's not gonna include those, okay? So this allows us to query inherited object. So I put some information there for you, so we can try that now. You can up arrow key where you don't have to retype some of it and then just add. Is, that's an is, right? Inherited. And EQ for equal, $, true with the lowercase. Close the curly brace. And then pipe for the next command. Space for that. Oh, I must have had a syntax, sorry. Let me see. R.access. Where object. Oh, I'm missing an underscore right here. Oops. Right before is inherited. There we go. It's better. So it might look exactly the same because all of your objects are true. But if you have non-true objects, right, that are disinherited, right, the second time around, it would not include those. It would only include the true objects. And then the first time, it would include everybody. Okay. Both true and untrue. So the member object property is inherited, and that will be part of your ACE access control entry. So now we can do the descriptor. So earlier, when you want to obtain information about the access, you do a get ACL, right? Later on, you would see that you are going to do a set ACL. So we can use set ACL, which is a different function, to apply the proper permission to that particular file or object, right? And they use common C practice, a set and get. So get is always remember to view information, and set is to apply the access property. Any questions? Stuff on anything? Okay, so here we declared another variable, right? And then we would, so you can use container to store, you know, and then pass that variable in for your next function. So understand the programming aspect of an application like PowerShell helps too. Okay. So I'll do this one with you. We would do a ACL. Get ACL. Define the path. And it's a path, so you can use single or double quotation mark. So here we would do a share. And make sure that client list actually exists. So we created that earlier. And make sure that is the same way that we name it. And it took that declaration of the variable, then now we're gonna do a set ACL. So as you see that it highlights in yellow for the execution of that function, and then we would do an ACL object, and we would pass the ACL variable. And another path. C. Share. Sorry. There it goes. Underscore projects. Let's see. So this is a way that we can apply the access, right? Using a variable which has the client list and apply that for the project. Everything took fine, so it should be okay. I try to put the information here for you. So that means that they are identical at this point. Okay. So because they are not inside one another, we can't really do inheritance. This is a way that you can apply the same permission from one to another, putting one into a container and then setting it for the path for the other one. And then you can do the same thing on command prompt as in PowerShell with the net user command. And we are going to make a new user account called CIS27 test with the password. So if your password is not long enough, it might throw an error. So you can just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Just to make it longer for 12 character because you had set policy in lab 2. And that took successfully. Now we're going to declare another variable called new ACL. And we're going to obtain the information for the access information for client list. Then we are going to create another variable called identity. Use this to set full control for that. But it should come with full control. So you have to execute all of these functions individually. These are comments, so you don't have to write them. Right? Only the one without the hashtag for step 44. And then I will check on some of you.
Can I go back to this?
Yeah, up arrow B to go back, which you did.
Okay.
Use the arrow key, no cursor allowed in command line. No clicking allowed in command line. Use the arrow left, right to navigate and then take out the character that you don't need. Sure. Just like Linux, remember? Yep. A little longer lab today, right? We're almost done. So I hope that you understand the concept. In general, right, we set a variable for the function or for the path, and then we would use that with another function. So after a while, you get the pattern, you get the repetition of it, and it gets easier. Okay. So at the end, we can copy permissions from one object to another by set ACL and then to another's path. So a lot of it is repetition. What's name? Yep. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.